Good day, everyone. Again, we are the Group 6, and in this discussion, let us focus on Alfred Bandura's well known social cognitive theory. But before we dive to our main discussion, let me first introduce to you the reporters of this group. Yours truly, Miss Elia, Miss Makisa, and Mr. Pagsulingan. But before we proceed to the deeper level of this theory, let's first have an overview of social cognitive theory. Social cognitive theory is a response to the reductionist nature of behaviorism. Ine-emphasize sa theory na to na humans are flexible. We can learn from various situation. 'Di ba kung napapansin nyo kanina, sinasabi ng mga behaviorists, reinforcement will teach us. So pag hindi ka na-reinforce sa isang bagay, hindi mo matututunan. Like, naka-general lang talaga siya doon. While for um, Bandura's perspective, humans are flexible. We can learn from various situations. Hindi lang nakabase yung mga matututunan natin sa ating experiences, but also from other people. So, ang tawag doon is vicarious learning. In addition to that, ang causation model nito is tinatawag na triadic reciprocal causation model. Para sa mga behaviorists, ang sinasabi nila is like environment can only cause the behavior. While sa social cognitive theory is triadic siya, bali tatlo ang nakaka-cause sa behavior. Itong mga factors na to is ang person, environment, and behavior. And sinasabi na itong tatlo na to is nagre-reciprocate sila sa bawat isa, bali they can cause each other. And as consequences of that model, merong agentic perspective na tinatawag means we have the ability to control the environment and our lives. So, as opposed ito sa mga behaviorists, kasi 'di ba sinasabi doon, if you want to control your life, then control the environment. Pero para sa social cognitive theory, people have the ability to control the environment and their lives and vice versa. In addition to that, some of the important concept dito sa social cognitive theory is self-efficacy, which is the ability that we can perform the behaviors that will produce a desired outcome. Sinasabi rin sa theory na to na people regular regulate their behaviors via external and internal factors kasi nga triadic siya. Also, when people find themselves in morally ambiguous situation, they typically attempt to regulate their behaviors through moral agency. So, sinasabi dito na ang morality ng tao ay through cognitive lens. Hindi siya katulad sa mga naunang theories na ano yung tama or mali. So, pag kumbaga sa social cognitive theory, ang moral agency ay nagde-define kung ano ba ang good behavior sa bad behavior na gagawin natin. And that would be all for this part. Later, yung mga binanggit kong topic is mas mabibigyan pa siya ng better explanation ng mga presenter. And thank you. And for biographical sketch of Bandura, Alfred Bandura was born on December 4, 1925 in Mondaire, a small town located in northern Alberta. His both parents immigrated from Eastern Europe countries, from his father from Poland and his mother from Ukraine. Nag-iisang lalaki lang siya sa limang babaeng kapatid niya. Therefore, he was taught to be independent and self-reliant kasi being immigrant, hindi naman sila pwede depende sa ibang tao. Dahil they have this insecurity na they have to do on their own, they have to be knowledgeable and independent from other people. And as independent individual himself, he learned self-directiveness sa school niya na meron lamang unting teacher and unting resources. So, bale, isa siyang epitome na if there's a will, there's a way. In addition to that, after niyang graduate ng high school, nag-work siya sa Alaska Highway. So, yung ibang coworkers niya dito is meron silang various degree in psychopathology. Kaya parang somehow nagkaroon siya ng interest sa clinical psychology. However, hindi rin niya talaga balak at first maging psychologist until he enrolled in the University of British Columbia and Vancouver. Sabi niya yung decision niya daw to become a psychologist was quite accidental and resulted daw ito ng fortuitous event. So, para lang magka-context tayo, ang college kasi 'di ba sa ibang bansa is walang major, I mean program. Unlike dito sa sa Philippines na kapag pasok mo meron ka na agad program like psychology. Sa kanila walang gano'n, like parang general lang, gano'n. So, si Bandura lagi niyang mga kasabay papunta sa school was like mga pre-med and engineering, ta's maaga silang pumapasok. And sa part ni Bandura, dahil nga maaga silang pumapasok kasi sumasabay siya do'n, wala siyang ginagawa dun sa early hour na nasa school siya. Therefore, he decided to enroll in a psychology class that happened to be offered at that time. And because of that, naging interested siya sa nature ng psychology kaya eventually nag-take rin siya ng psychology major. Kinonsider rin pala ni Bandura na yung mga lagi niyang kasabay papasok ng school is cause yun ng chance events. Like, nagkaroon sila ng significant influence sa buhay niya. And because of that, he became one of the most published psychologists at all time. Marami siyang na-publish na research and books related to psychology. And sadly, he died at his home in Stanford on July 26, 2021 from heart failure at the age of 95. And before we proceed to the terms and conditions of Bandura's social cognitive theory, let's have now focus on the basic assumption of this theory. Like behaviorism, kasama sa learning theories ang social cognitive theory. Therefore, nagpo-focus rin ang theory na to sa learning. So, in behaviorism, we can learn through classical and operant conditioning. However, in social cognitive theory, kasama pa rin naman sila kaso it's more than that kasi ang learning para kay Bandura, mas more than siya sa mga conditioning. Although he agree with Skinner that we learn through our own experiences, but para sa kanya is ineffective method daw ito ng pag-acquire ng learning and does not explain humanity, rapid cognitive and social growth. So parang pinaparating dito ni Bandura na sumasang-ayon siya kay Skinner na if we if we experience reinforcement, may tendency na matuto tayo. However, pero sabi naman ni Bandura na parang hindi naman ata efficient or matagal kung ganon kasi ibig sabihin na kunwari ako, natutunan ko through reinforcement na dapat magsipag ako para maging successful ako. Pero paano naman yung ibang tao, 'di ba? Hindi naman natin kailangan kasi magpursige muna or alamin at first hand dahil pwede naman nating yun malaman o matutunan sa ibang tao. Like yung mga rags to riches na mga stories. And in that way, we can actually learn from those people na sila nagpursige sila kaya sila naging successful. So ako, for example, pag nagpursige ako, magiging successful rin ako. In addition to that, Bandura stated that if knowledge could be acquired only through the effects of one's own actions, the process of cognitive and social development would be greatly retarded, not to mention exceeding tedious. Para sa kanya, mahirap kung sa bilyon na tao dito sa mundo, tuturuan lang sila through reinforcement. Kaya, Bandura therefore conclude that we can also learn from others. So, learning occurs because people observe the consequence of other people behaviors. And ang difference nila kay behaviorism is that sa behaviorism, 'di ba, kung napansin niyo kanina, we can learn through our personal experiences or reinforcement. Pero sabi naman ni Bandura ay hindi, pwede mo naman niya matutunan sa ibang tao. Huwag mo nang pahirapan yung sarili mo. Now let's proceed to the terms and concepts of this theory. The first one is observational learning. Observational learning, although reinforcement facilitate learning, Bandura believes that the observation allows people to learn without performing any behavior. People can learn, for example, by observing models being reinforced. So, a good man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from other mistakes. And like sa example na present kanina, hindi mo naman kailangan magpursige tapos makuha yung reinforcement para lang malaman mo na magiging successful ka. Kasi kung makikita mo lang yung ibang tao na nagpursige sila, naging masipag, or na-reinforce sila because of that effort na ginawa nila, alam natin na pag ginawa rin natin yung certain na behavior or effort na ginawa nila is most likely magiging ganun rin tayo. And by observing other people, Humans are spared countless responses that might be followed by punishment or by no reinforcement. Kasi kung random lang tayong may gagawin na activities, maghihintay lang tayo kung sino sa kanila yung ma-reinforce, magiging inefficient siya. So at least by observing sa ibang tao na kung ano yung ginawa niyang certain behavior tapos na-reinforce siya, gagayahin nilang natin. Ganun yung observational learning. We observe other people and then we learn from them. So, ang perfect na pwedeng gawing example dito is yung mga bata kasi sobrang magaling sila manggaya, 'di ba? Kung napapansin nyo. Hindi kailangan ng reinforcement para gawin nila yung isang bagay kasi once na makita lang nila yung adult na nagsalita ng bad word or anything or pag may ginawa, they can actually copy that. Like, kung naalala niyo yung Bubudol experiment ni Bandura, napanood ng mga bata na binubugbog ng mga adults yung doll, then ginaya nila yung mga actions ng mga adult. So by that, hindi kailangan ng reinforcement para lang gawin ang isang bagay. Kailangan lang talaga makita ng someone na na-reinforce sa certain behavior na yon para ma-repeat yung behavior or magaya yung behavior. Also, in observational learning, may process dyan na tinatawag na modeling. And ito yung core component niya. So, learning through modeling involves adding and subtracting from the observed behavior and generalizing from one observation to another. And observational learning, laging may model. And itong model na ito is parang siyang role model. However, tayong mga tao is hindi naman tayo basta-basta gumagaya nila ng kung sino-sino. Namimili rin naman tayo kung sino yung mga gagawin natin model. For example, sa mga bata, usually na pinipili nila is yung mga matatanda. Kasi kung nasa perspective tayo ng mga bata, iisipin natin na alam na nila yung mga ginagawa nila kasi nga matanda na sila. However, pag tumanda naman na yung mga bata na yun is marirealize nila na hindi lahat, karamihan sa mga adults is hindi lahat ng mga decisions and actions nila is tama. On the other hand, for adults naman is usually na ginagawa nila is yung mga taong may high status or seemingly competent people. Like for example, yung mga artista, founder ng business, and politicians. Itong mga ito ay ginagaya ng ibang mga tao kasi they know na they are rewarded in life. Therefore, kung ano man ang gagawin nila is baka applicable doon sa mga taong ginawa sila bilang model. Kaya kaya nila ginagaya. Kasi baka sakaling maging kagaya rin nila yung mga model nila. Ganun yung process ng modeling. Moreover, high status people also include competent people. For example, if you want to be competent in a certain field, you have a tendency to model yourself from that competent people. Gagayahin mo sila. However, hindi naman yung gagayahin na general kasi nga adding and subtracting ang modeling. Therefore, ang gagawin mo lang is gagayahin ka sa kanila na feeling mo effective sa'yo. Then, you will be na hoping that you will be rewarded for it. Also, the greater the value an observer places on a behavior, the more likely the observer will acquire that behavior. For example, yung behavior na gusto mong makuha is dancing. So, ang magiging role model mo is yung mga taong magaling sumayaw. Kasi, alam mong matututo ka sa kanila kung paano sumayaw. So, in that way, marireproduce mo yung behavior na ginagawa nila. And ganun yung process ng modeling. And now let's discuss the processes of governing observational learning. Bandura recognized the four processes that govern observational learning, and this includes attention, representation, behavioral production, and motivation. Dahil ginawa ito, dahil hindi naman tayo pwedeng automatic na lang na mag-copy-paste ng mga bagay-bagay. Dapat may process and may model. So, dahil may model tayo, kailangan natin siya bigyan ng atensyon para makita natin yung mga behavior na ginagawa niya. So, sabi ni Bandura, may dalawang types ito. Una, we have more opportunities to observe yung mga taong malapit sa atin. For example, yung parents and relatives natin. While the second one naman is yung mga attractive people daw is most likely natin ma-observe or gawing model than unattractive ones. Ang mga ito is mga usually popular figures, for example, mga international artists like K-pops, lalo na karamihan sa atin ng mga high school days natin is gusto natin silang i-imitate kasi nga ang gagaling nila sumayaw and super talented nila. So, by that, we are observing their behaviors to learn those. Dahil hindi naman tayo pwedeng pumunta sa kanila dahil lang gusto nating magpa-reinforce or magpa-shape to learn their behaviors. So, instead, ang gagawin na lang natin is to attend to them by observing or watching their dance videos kung paano sila mag-pop or lock. And then, once we attend to those details ng behavior nila, we will represent them in our minds. And dito napapasok yung pagiging flexible ng human beings. Kasi unlike sa animals, wala silang representation or unlike sa mga tao na kaya natin mag-represent ng external things sa mind natin. For example, yung attention na nakita natin sa K-pop group na ini-stand natin na may ginawa silang certain moves sa isang part ng dance music nila. Then we can symbolically encode that in our memory na kapag narinig natin yung certain beat or part ng music video nila is gagayahin natin yung ginawang move ng model natin sa timestamp na yon. Ganon ang representation. Parang ini-stimulate natin sa utak natin kung paano siya gagawin. Moreover, once na na-represent siya ng maayos sa memory natin, we can now do the behavioral production or gagawin na natin siya. Dito napapasok yung how can I do this? For example, dahil nga K-pop ang example nating mod, dito na yung sasayaw tayo, ganun, and the next thing that we will ask ourselves is, oh, am I doing this? Or am I doing this right? Kasi kasabay ng behavioral production is evaluating kung maayos ba or hindi yung ginagawa natin. Dahil alam natin na meron tayong self-awareness, we can observe kung tama ba yung ginagawa natin by taking a video of ourselves or na sumasayo or may malaking mirror tayo na nakikita yung sarili natin. So, that is behavioral production. And as you can see, hindi talaga natin kailangan ng reinforcement. Kailangan lang talaga natin is i-observe ang ibang tao para matuto tayo. And ayun yung sa perspective ni Bandura. Furthermore, and-emphasize din na ang important component daw ng observational learning is ang motivation. Or do I really need to do this? So, for K-pop fans, they want to be their idols. Gaya, kaya gusto nilang gayahin yung idols nila. Kasi once na nagaya na nila, may sort of satisfactions and reinforcement na kapag nagawa nila yon is parang parehas na sila ng idols nila. Kaya nga idol eh. So, that is how observational learning works. You can also apply this in other learning situation. For example, learning a new subject. Mag-a-attend ka sa teacher mo, then i-represent mo sa mind mo yung mga tinuro niya. And then, behavioral reproduce mo siya by answering quizzes or assignments na binigay sa'yo ng teacher mo. Or ituturo mo sa ibang classmates mo yung mga concepts na hindi nila na-gets dun sa teacher mo. And yung motivation mo dito is you want to become a honor student. And that's the processes of governing observational learning of Bandura. And another way of learning aside from observational learning is what Bandura called as inactive learning. Bandura believes that complex human behavior can be learned when people think and evaluate the consequence of their behavior. Other than observational learning, we can also learn by thinking about the consequence of our behaviors or watching other people behaviors and then watching the consequence of their behavior. Parang pag nakita natin yung isang tao na rewarded siya because of the behavior na ginawa niya, therefore feeling natin yung ginawa niya is maganda. Kaya tayo din is gagayahin natin or gagawin din natin yung behavior niya. Basically, the person did this and received reinforcement. So if I also do this, I will also receive reinforcement. And response consequence informs us of the effects of our actions. Also, the consequence of our actions whether nakita natin siya sa ibang tao or sa sarili natin, alam natin yung consequence ng mga ginagawa natin. Like this response consequences then informs us of the effects of our actions. So, ang consequence of our responses must motivate our anticipatory behavior that we are capable of symbolic representing future outcomes and acting accordingly. Tayo kasing mga tao, we have the ability to predict the future. However, hindi naman yung OA na type na nakakahula ka talaga kasi walang ganon. But what I mean is we know the consequence of our behavior. And how do we know that? Because of observing other people, or we just know it na kapag hinawakan natin yung mainit na bagay, mapapasa tayo. We can somehow predict the future, and this capability of predicting the future or being able to conceive of a future or consequence of our action can teach us or make us learn something. Unlike sa mga animals na they do not know the consequence of their behaviors unless ma-experience nila. While as humans, dahil alam natin yung mga magiging consequence sa mga behavior natin, based sa mga na-observe natin or sa sarili nating cognition, ang tendency is yung consequence mismo ng action natin can become a reinforcement for us to do or not to do a behavior. Dahil alam natin na, for example, na kapag minura mo ang teacher mo sa harap ng klase, mapapagalitan ka or worse, mapapatawag ka sa principal's office. Kaya hindi mo na siya gagawin. Or kaya naman kapag alam mo na kapag nag-review ka ng maayos or nag-aral ka ng maayos, mataas ang tendency na makakuha ka ng high score. So, in that way, alam mo yung consequence ng behavior mo. Which ang gagawin mo is magre-review ka. And that is how inactive learning works. The consequence itself or the thought of that is already a reinforcement, which is well documented by Skinner and other reinforcement theories. And next topic is how do we learn? And based on Bandura, we can actually learn through observational learning and inactive learning. The learning process allows people to have some degree of control over the events that shape the course of their lives. Kasi for example, you want to be someone that is successful. You observe successful people and imitate what they are doing. And also, alam mo rin na pag may ginawa kang mali, na sa buhay mo, malilis ng landas yung buhay mo or else masisira yung buhay mo. And for example, teenage pregnancy. Alam mo yung consequence ng behavior mo na kapag nakikipag-sex ka ng unprotected, may possible na babuntis ka at masisira yung buhay mo doon. Kaya instead na masira yung buhay mo is ang gagawin mo na lang like yung unprotected sex is hindi mo na siya gagawin. Then it will then change the course of your life. Again, yung inactive learning is, di ba, sinabi doon na knowing the consequence of your behavior. And pag wala kang idea sa consequence ng behavior or actions mo is may possibility na masira ang buhay mo. Kaya taliwas talaga dito yung mga reasons ng mga maagang nagkaanak. I mean, yung bata talaga na sinasabing na aksidente siya kaya siya nabuntis. I mean, hindi siya justifiable unless naging victim ka talaga. Kasi once you did the act, you know the consequence of your behavior and based yun dun sa inactive learning. And so, sabi rin dito na yung people da is meron lang silang some degree of control of their lives kasi nga hindi lang naman person ang nakaka-control sa buhay natin. Diba, triadic nga siya sa perspective ni Bandura. And also, control, however, rests with three ways: reciprocal interaction of person, variables, behavior, and environment. Kumbaga, ang foundation ng social cognitive theory is we learn from other people, and other people are considered as environment then. However, we always have a choice kung gagayahin ba natin yung ibang tao. Lagi tayong may control, but then again, yung control is not necessarily nasa environment lang siya or only on the person. Meron pang ibang nasa loob ng reciprocal interaction. And mas mabibigyan pa ng diin yung triadic reciprocal causation. And dito na papasok ang triadic reciprocal causation model ni Bandura. Dito parang minerge ni Bandura yung dalawang model na trait theories at behaviorism. So, trait theories kasi, diba, ang minodel dyan is ang personal traits natin na nagsasabing siya ang nagde-define sa behavior. For example, may basic tendency ka to become agreeable or not agreeable. Ang tendency ng behavior na maproproduce mo is hindi ka mag-agree sa mga tao or ayaw mo sa mga tao. Gaya na lang ng mataas ang pagiging openness mo, ang tendency ng behavior mo is magiging open ka sa halat. Ayun yung trait theories. While for behaviorism naman is another way siya. Kasi sabi diba dito yung environment will affect the behavior. For example, introverted ka, like yung behavior mo, hindi naman dahil introverted yung
personality trait mo, introverted ka dahil na-reinforce sa'yo yung mga pang-introverted na activities kaya ka naging introverted. And ang behaviorism kasi wala siyang care sa personality traits and sa tao, may paki siya dun sa nangyayari sa buhay na kung bakit na-reinforce yung mga behaviors na meron ka. And however, sa model ni Bandura na triadic reciprocal causation model, pinag-merge at in-enrich niya pa yung dalawang model na yon. Sabi niya dito is personality traits, environment, and behavior will affect each other. Personality traits can predict your environment and vice versa to personality traits. Personality traits can affect your behavior can affect your personality traits, and then the environment can affect your behavior, and behavior can affect your environment. Much more complex siya sa personality traits and behaviorism kasi nga, etong model na to is parang most likely six ways siya. And para maging clear sa atin kasi medyo nakakalito talaga siya, let's have an example. Merong father na meron siyang personality trait na very responsible para sa kanyang anak. Ngayon, meron siyang anak na pasaway. Gusto pa ng additional sweets. So, ang tatay is may dalawang choice ng behavior, which is to give or not give. So, anong gagawin ng tatay? So, by following the trait theories na personality traits will define the behavior, ang sagot dito is being a responsible father. Syempre, hindi niya na pagbibigyan ng additional sweets ang kanyang anak, especially kung kumain naman na ito. While for behaviorism approach naman, because of the child is begging for sweet, yung tatay is pagbibigyan niya na kumain ng additional sweets ang anak niya para sumaya ito, para ma-reinforce. However, by following the model of Bandura, hindi lang nakakoble sa dalawang approach yung patang tatay. So, being a responsible father, hindi niya na dapat talaga bibigyan. Pero, ang mga bata kasi, di ba, hindi naman sila agad-agad pumapayag. Instead, gagamitin pa nila yung cuteness nila or magta-tantrum sila in order to get what they want. So, yung child being the environment will affect the father, and being the responsible father that he is, he might not give additional sweets. And alam ng tata yun, but still, affected pa rin siya sa cuteness or pagtatantrum episode ng anak niya, kaya gusto niyang bigyan ng sweets. Kasi 'di ba may mga instances or mga dilema na ganun. So, ang gagawin na lang ng tatay is iisipin niya na kung bibigyan niya ng additional sweets ang anak niya, ang tendency is manghihingi ulit or magiging spoiled siya, which taliwas sa pagiging responsible father niya. And yung pag mas nanaig yung pagiging responsible father niya, ang gagawin niya is hindi niya nabibigyan ng additional sweets. And yung behavior na not to give will affect the environment or yung child. Sasabihin ng child na hindi na siya mahal ng father niya kasi hindi binigyan. And as a father, masasaktan siya. Ang tendency, bibigyan na lang siya ng father niya or may ibang behavior siya na pwedeng explain sa bata kung bakit niya ginawa yon. So, as you can see, hindi siya simple because of environment or yung personality na meron yung father. Merong interaction sa tatlo at hindi siya pwedeng dumepende lang sa isa. Instead, may reciprocal interaction sa tatlo. Ganun yung model na dinevelop ni Bandura.
Chance encounter and fortuitous events. Although people can and do exercise a significant amount of control over their lives, they cannot predict or anticipate all possible environment changes. Bandura is the only personality theorist to seriously consider the possible importance of these chance encounters and fortuitous events. So, chance encounter, ang ibig sabihin lang ng chance encounter ay pagkikita or pagtatagpo ng dalawang individual na hindi sila magkakilala or they don't have any idea to the identity of each other. Example is, yung mga taong kakikilala nyo lang sa isang event katulad na lang ng mga concert, mga gig, or even book fair na sinasalihan natin. Isa pang halimbawa ay ang ating mga friends. Bago natin sila makilala, we have a chance encounter to them. They were once unfamiliar and strangers to us. And for the fortuitous events, is an environmental experience that is unexpected and unintended. Madalas sa mga experiences na ito ay may malaking epekto sa kabuuan ng ating pagkatao. Let's example the love life of Abraham Maslow. We all know naman na ang pinakasalan ni Maslow ay ang kanyang pinsan na si Bertha Goodman. Paano nga ba niya ito nakuha? So, a young man Maslow has a personality of being exceedingly shy, especially with women. He was so in love kay Bertha but he cannot express his love dahil siya nga ay napakamahiyain. Isang araw noong bumisita siya sa bahay nila Bertha, yung ate ni Bertha ay tinulak si Maslow papunta doon kay Bertha, sabay sabing, "For the love of Pete, kiss her, will ya?" And Maslow did. Nagulat siya kasi hindi niya akalaing papalagan ni Bertha yung halik niya, and from that moment, Maslow's previously aimless life became transformed. Ganito ang ating tinatawag na fortuitous events sa ating buhay. These are environmental factors that we don't have control but can significantly alter our lives. And for the two concepts the chance encounters and fortuitous events occur in the environment. May mga random negative things na nangyayari sa ating buhay and we always have a choice kung anong gagawin natin doon. Either magmumukmuk tayo sa gilid or gawin natin itong fertilizer upang tumaba at maging malusog ang ating buhay. The next concept is the human agency. It is a social cognitive theory takes an agentic view of personality, meaning that humans have the capacity to exercise control over their own lives. Indeed, human agency is the essence of humanness. Bandura believed that na ang mga tao raw ay may mga self-regulating, proactive, self-reflective, and self-organizing, and we have a power or will to influence the actions to produce the desired consequences. Meaning, people always have a choice. For saying kay Bandura, we don't have a choice is still a choice and ayun yung pinili nating choice. For example is, may sakit ka and hindi mo kayang pumasok but you have an exam that day. Nasa isip mo ay you don't have a choice but to absent kasi nga hindi mo kayang pumasok. Di ba you still choose in the choices that were given to you? You get the point? The you don't have a choice is still a choice. Now let's discuss the core of human agency. First is the intentionality. It is referred to acts a person performs intentionally. An intention includes planning, but it also involves actions. Intentionality does not mean that all of a person's plans will be brought to fruition. People continually change their plans as they become aware of the consequences of their actions. So, lahat ng tao ay may intention or lagi tayong may balak sa mga bagay. We can't say everything is an accident. For example is, let's go to the negative side. I would example to you the tukso, the common problem ng mga tao. In the first place, bakit ka nagkatukso? The reason is kasi may intention ka na lapitan yung tukso and also you have the intention na gawin ang bagay na iyon. On the positive side though, I would example the pangarap. We all have pangarap. Ito yung mga bagay na gusto natin mangyari sa ating buhay and that's the intention in our lives. If you don't have intention, you can get the life you want it to be dahil all things start with intentions. For achieving the dream we need to plan and dito napapasok yung next core features of human agency which is the forethought. People also possess forethought to set goals, to anticipate likely outcomes of their actions, and to select behaviors that will produce desired outcomes and avoid undesirable ones. Forethought enables people to break free from the constraint of their environment. For example is, your intentions or your dream is to become a doctor. Anong actions ang kailangan mong gawin para maging doctor ka or makamit mo yung pangarap mo? And the process of thinking about that is the forethought. Let's say, yung forethought mo, dapat mag-enroll ka sa medical school and after that, mag-aral ng mabuti para mag-excel and maging ganap na doctor sa future. That's a forethought. Mga behaviors most likely will produce a desired outcomes. And for the next features is the self-reactiveness. People do more than plan and contemplate future behaviors. They are also capable of self-reactiveness in the process of motivating and regulating their own actions. People not only make choices but they monitor their progress towards fulfilling those choices. Ngayon, we are aware sa kung anong gusto natin, ito ay pwede nating mamonitor and pwede nating mamonitor ang progress ng sarili natin. For example is, dudugtungan ko na lang yung example ko. You dreamt to be a doctor, di ba? That's why nag-enroll ka sa medical school. Nag-aral ka ba ng mabuti? Are you taking it seriously? Naiintindihan ba natin yung mga pinag-aaralan natin? So that's a self-reactiveness. Parang you are interviewing yourself kasi may progress, kung may progress ba yung pangarap mo. And self-react next human core agency is the self-reflectiveness. They are examiners of their own functioning. They can think about and evaluate their motivations, values, and the meanings of their life goals. And they can think about the adequacy of their own thinking. They can also evaluate the effect that other people's actions have on them. Dito naman, we are evaluating the actions and behaviors na ginagawa natin to achieve the goal. Kung effective pa ba itong gawin natin? So, may isang concept mechanism na importante sa self-reflectiveness and ito yung self-efficacy. People's most crucial self-reflective mechanism is the self-efficacy. We have certain beliefs that they are capable of performing actions that will produce a desired outcome. Next is what is self-efficacy. So, self-efficacy is similar to the self-confidence pero general itong general yung self-confidence while yung self-efficacy is more context-based. Bandura contends that efficacy beliefs are the foundation of human agency. For example natin yung pangarap na doktor. You have the beliefs na ginawa mo yung mga steps sa forethought mo to the point na magpuproduce siya ng desired outcome. Like, mag-aaral ka ng mabuti and yung outcomes na gusto mo is yung higher grades. Therefore, you are capable of becoming a doctor kasi your academic behaviors ay maglilid sa'yo sa pangarap mo na maging doctor. Next is, what contributes to self-efficacy? Usually, self-efficacy is all about the skills, knowledge in a certain field or a certain aspect of our lives. It can be personal, academic, and so on. The first contributes to self-efficacy is the mastery of experiences. Ito ang most influential sources ng self-efficacy. Mga past experiences natin na nagre-raise sa ating efficacy expectancies. Ibig sabihin lang, kapag yung mga past performances natin ay successful, mataas ang ating efficacy expectancy. And kapag failure naman ito, it lowers the efficacy expectancies we have. Example is, yung mga athletes. Kapag yung mga past experiences nila sa competition ay laging panalo, their efficacy expectancy to win the another game is high and vice versa. And the mastery of experiences has a general statement, corollaries. First is, successful performance raises self-efficacy in proportion to the difficulty of the task. Second is, tasks successfully accomplished by oneself are more efficacious than those completed with the help of others. The third one is, failure is most likely to decrease efficacy when we know that we put forth our best effort. The fourth is, failure under conditions of high emotional arousal or distress is not as debilitating as failure under maximal conditions. The fifth is, Failure prior to establishing a sense of mastery is more detrimental to feelings of personal efficacy than later failure. And for the last is the sixth. Related corollary is the occasional failure has little effect on efficacy, especially for people with a general high expectancy of success. The next one is the social modeling. A second sources of efficacy is social modeling. That is vicarious experiences provided by other people. So our self-efficacy is raised when we observe the accomplishments of another person of equal competence, but is lowered when we see peer fail. When other person is dissimilar to us, social modeling will have a little effect on our self-efficacy. Ibig sabihin, kapag ang kasing level or yung mga taong alam nating ka-level natin ay nag-fail sa isang certain task or situations, nakakababa rin ito ng self-efficacy and may epekto rin ito sa ating moral. Example, example ulit natin yung mga athletes. Halimbawa, yung isang player ay natalo sa kalaban and ikaw na yung next na lalaban, mag-e-effect yun sa'yo and panghihinaan ka ng loob or kakabahan ka. On the other hand, kapag nanalo naman yung kakampi mo, most likely tataas yung confidence na meron sa atin or sa'yo. The next one is the social persuasions. Self-efficacy can also be acquired or weakened through social persuasions. The effects of this source are limited, but under proper conditions. Persuasions from proper conditions, persuasions from others can raise or lower the self-efficacy. So, criticisms or exhortations from other people can have an effect to our self-efficacy. Pero ito ay nakadepende sa persuader natin. If the persuader is a credible source, such as mga professional people, it can lower our self-efficacy. Pero kung ka-level lang natin sila or mas mataas pa yung level natin, wala itong epekto. And Bandura hypothesized that the efficacious power of suggestions is directly related to the perceived status and authority of the persuader. Example is, pinuri ka ng teacher mo dahil mataas ang scores mo sa exams ninyo, then your self-efficacy will raise and vice versa. Kapag mababa yung scores mo, then yung teacher mo ay parang pinagalitan ka. The last one is the physical and emotional state. This is the final source of efficacy is people's physiological and emotional state. Strong emotion ordinarily lowers performance. When people experience intense fear, acute anxiety, or high levels of stress, they are likely to have lower efficacy expectancies. Ang sinasabi lang dito is, kapag mataas yung emotional arousal, katulad ng kinakabahan ito or kinakabahan, nakakababa raw ito ng self-efficacy. Same with the physical. If may nararamdaman tayong physically pain, nakaka-apekto yun sa performance natin that leads to lower self-efficacy. Pero, some psychologists believe na kapag anxious yung isang tao, nakakataas din ito ng self-efficacy kasi we are much aware sa nangyayari sa paligid natin, like mas pinag-iisipan natin yung mga gagawin nating actions or behavior. For the next topic is the other modes of human agency. First is the proxy agency. Proxy involves indirect control over those social conditions that affect everyday living. Bandura noted that no one has the time, energy, and resources to master every realm of everyday life. Successful functioning necessarily involves a blend of reliance on proxy agency in some areas of functioning. Proxy, however, has a downside. By relying too much on the competence and power of others, people may weaken their sense of personal and collective efficacy. Ang ibig sabihin lang is, yung efficacy mo ay ipapasa mo sa efficacy ng iba dahil hindi mo kaya to at kaya namang gawin ito ng pinasahan mo. So, yung proxy agency is like we trust people We trust each other or we trust other people. Example, in capitalist country, ang mga taong nakatira doon ay may iba't ibang skills or they are specialized in different fields. Para mas maging efficient. And last is the collective efficacy. The third mode of human agency is collective efficacy. Bandura defined collective efficacy as people's shared beliefs in their collective power to produce desired results. Collective efficacy does not spring from a collective mind, but rather from the personal efficacy of many individuals working together. A group's collective efficacy, however, depends not only on the knowledge and skills of its individual members, but also on their beliefs that they can work together in a coordinate and interactive fashion. Ang ibig sabihin lang nito ay, as a group, may teamwork and trust sila sa isa't isa. For example ay, sa isang basketball team, yung isang player doon ay may low efficacy, pero he still trusts sa teammates niya na mananalo pa rin sila. And another example naman is yung voting, initiatives of lowering greenhouse gases, and avoiding spread of pandemic.
Self-regulation is simply talks about controlling behavior, whether dadagdagan, babawasan, or regulating behavior because we are aware na yung behaviors natin can result in consequences. Kasi we always have a choice and every choices has a consequences. That is why kapag sinabi ng tao na aksidente lang ang nangyari, like for example, the common one, kapag nabuntis ka sa murang edad, you can say na it's accident because you're fully aware once you do that thing and you know na it can result something negative. And this one is the example na nag-feel ka to regulate yourself. And there are two ways to regulate. The first one is the reactive strategy. It is reactively attempt to reduce the discrepancies between the accomplishments and the goal. An example is ang goal mo is to graduate with flying colors or to be laude, to become laude. And of course, dapat you have certain behavior or to accomplish that goal you set for yourself. Like, nakakuha ka ng dos na grade and that may certain grade na pasok dapat sa quota for cum laude. So technically, may discrepancy na nangyari. That's why dapat may apply si self-regulation in order for you to achieve your goal in a way na magbabasa ka ng maraming books or aayusin mo yung way of reviewing. Reactive strategy simply tells us na you need to align your accomplishments towards your goal. And once na-align mo na ang dalawang yun, then doon na papasok si proactive strategy. So sa proactive strategy, meaning we proactively set newer and higher goals for ourselves, like unti-unti na tumataas yung grades mo and gradually possible ka na maging cum laude, then dadagdagan mo pa yung goal mo na gusto mong i-achieve. Like, what if kapag nag-boards ka, maging top-notcher ka? Yun na. External factors serves as reinforcement. Like, for example, may standards si parents and teachers na gusto ka nila maging behave sa school. And once na nasunod mo yun, makakuha ka ng approval sa kanila or bibigyan ka ni parents ng laruan. Kakain kayo sa Jollibee sa gusto mo. And kapag kay teacher naman, kapag uwian, natatakan ka niya ng star sa kamay. And these are the basic example of reinforcement since na-meet mo yung standards nila. And these external factors regulate our behavior to push ourselves to follow these external standards set upon by society. Also, to regulate our behavior, a person's behavior rather, you must give them reinforcement. And these reinforcements are usually external, like food, shelter, and most of the time money. Like kung gusto mo ng magandang outcome sa design mo for your product label na ipapagawa mo sa isang tao, technically, kailangan mo siyang bayaran. This also explains na it is not all the time na kailangan natin pairalin yung fulfillment kung tawagin. But simply talks about in order for you to push through, syempre, you need to receive reinforcement. Kailangan mo makareceive ng something rewarding para mas lalo kang ganado sa gagawin mo and makapag-produce ka pa ng creative and new ideas. So, si environmental factors, ito yung na-mention sa triadical reciprocal causation. So, sa self-regulation, mayroon tayo ulit na sinusunod na standard. Kasi, yung goal natin, may mga standard siya kung tawagin. Like, gaya nung sinabi ko kanina, in order for you to be loud dapat ma-maintain mo yung grade and that standard grade came from the environment and possible na galing itong standard sa ibang tao or society na magkaroon ng cut-off grades to be loud. Another example is, you want to be a good person. And that we learn through our parents or teachers on that certain behavior. Kumbaga, if you want to be a good person or better person, then kailangan mo silang sundan. Kailangan mo silang sundin yung mga standards na set nila para sa'yo. Or yung mga, kaya yung mga tao na feeling mo alam nila yung ginagawa nila and that explains that that explain yung standard na nanggagaling sa external world or factors na nai-influence nun yung mga personal behavior at sa tulong nun mareregulate ka since that is standard sinusunod mo from the outside world. And if meron kang external, then hindi mawawala si internal. Internal factors in self-regulation, and the self one is self-observation. So, humans are unique since we have the ability to observe and monitor ourselves. Like, for example, going back again, sa pag-aim natin ng Lao, by that, pwede natin i-observe yung sarili natin kung nag-aaral ba tayo na maayos, or kung okay lang ba yung study routine na meron tayo, hindi mabilis ma-distract while in the middle of reading, reviewing, and bigla kukunin si cellphone at manonood sa TikTok. And also kapag athletic ang isang tao, they can observe or monitor yung galawan natin. Like, let's say, a volleyball player. You can use your phone to record kung maayos ba yung pag-serve mo at pagpalo. Also, we can observe ourselves through interpersonal situations like relationships. Kung maayos ba or tama ba yung way mo on how to communicate sa isang tao. Like, okay ba yung pakikisama sa kaibigan natin, sa girlfriend or boyfriend. But once we observe ourselves, we can also judge our behavior since we can evaluate our actions kasi with the use of evaluating ourselves, kaya nating i-regulate yung behavior natin. Like, if good naman yung ginagawa natin, most likely pagkapatuloy natin sa pagpapagawa natin. And dito napapasok si judgmental process. So, si judgmental process, nakadepende siya sa tatlo. And the first one is personal standard, referential performances, and performance attribution. Unahin natin si personal standard. As I said before, ito yung nagagaling sa iba and tayo lang yung nagka-personalize nito since we all have different standards in life and that explains why. Pangalawa is si referential performances. Example, nakanta ka. Like, you ask yourself, has my singing improved over the years? Or kung nagtuturo ka naman isa kang teacher, you ask yourself, is my teaching ability better now than ever? Then, you need to evaluate it kung nag-improve ka ba talaga on that certain thing. And that is the referential performances. Next is the performance attribution. See, performance attribution is how we judge the causes of our behavior. So, kung naniniwala ka na nag-success ka sa isang bagay is because binigay mo yung dugot pawis mo to achieve it. And you will take pride in your accomplishment proudly. But kung hindi naman, internal ginawa ang isang bagay at may kasama kang gumawa to accomplish that certain things, then you don't have the right to take pride in it mag-isa. Kailangan may credits kung ibang tao kasama mo. But usually sometimes may mga tao na konti lang naman yung ambak pero feeling entitled to own individually yung project. Well, it happened talaga in real life. Na alam mo naman sa sarili mo na fair enough yung naging ambagan for your project, but there is always a member or a person na feeling niya inangkin niya na lahat ng responsibility. And after you evaluate yourself, then dito na papasok si self-reaction. So self-reaction is people respond positively or negatively to their behaviors depending on how these behaviors measure up to their personal standards. And sa self-reaction, like kapag tapos mo na ma-evaluate yung sarili mo, then you will ask yourself, like, am I good? Am I doing good or am I doing bad? If I'm doing good, then I will reward myself. But if I'm doing bad, then I will punish myself. And yung ibang tao, ganun sila mag-react sa kanilang behavior. For example, a diligent student rather, who has completed a reading assignment, then may reward siya sa kanyang sarili by watching K-drama. And for me, this is how I reward myself after completing all the requirements that need to be passed on time. Self-regulation through moral agency. Bandura says that people are naturally good because they have moral agency. Na mga beliefs that we do no harm to people and proactively helping people, meaning these two aspects guide our actions, like we do no harm to people, so we shouldn't hurt or kill people and proactively help them, offering a helping hand when in need or bibigay kahit magkano sa abot ng iyong mga kaya. And ideally, people all have this. But the question is, why people are still capable of doing bad things? So I have here example. Politicians frequently convince their constituents of the morality of war. Thus, wars are fought against evil people. People who deserve to be defeated or even annihilated. War is against moral agency. And we all know that because sa war, we all know that nagkakos ito ng harm. Kasi technically, you destroy people, their household, and economy. So if we assume that everyone has moral agency, then why? Bakit ang mga politicians nagagawang pumatay? It is because we justify our behavior. And now, how do we justify our behavior? And to justify our behavior, there has three steps. The first one is the moral justification. Example again, what we're doing is good and they are the bad guys. What makes us good is because gusto natin ng peaceful society and these bad guys doesn't allow us to experience peacefulness. Next is the palliative comparison. Example again, every time we hear kill or destroy, we technically feel the fear or the chills. Then, in order na hindi natin maramdaman or maisip yung ganong things, then we will neutralize the threat. That is also the euphemistic labeling, like improving the life of people. The second one is the detrimental effects, which is the minimizing, ignoring, or misconstruing the consequences. If we kill people, syempre, may mga consequences yan. Like, a lot of lives will be lost. A lot of families will end up suffering and it will have a detrimental effects. And in order to minimize the consequences, ang papalabasin natin, kaya nawala sila or namatay itong mga taong to. Dahil they are the bad guys. And those who are still alive and breathing are the good ones. And that society will improve because wala na yung mga namatay. And that's how people justify their consequences. Next is the victim. Dehumanization, attribution of blame. So after they killed persons in war, they treat these people as bad guys, as I said earlier, and dehumanize them and turn them into statistics like yung mga namatay sa field, they are not human. Instead, they are numbers. Like questions na ilan namatay, ilan yung wounded. Kasi hindi na matatanungin yung pangalan ng mga taong biktima. Instead, the number of it. Sometimes people say na kaya namatay sila kasi kulang sa skills or nasa wrong country, and it turns out na victim blaming, while in fact these killed people were dehumanized. It can also apply sa mga babae or lalaki na nakaka-experience ng abuse sa mga asawa nila. They're abusing them kasi wala silang confidence sa sarili nila, kaya nilalabas nila ito sa ibang tao. Dysfunctional behavior. Bender's concept of triadic reciprocal causation assumes that behavior is learned as a result of a mutual interaction of self-observation, judgment process, self-proactiveness, and self-reaction. So, the first one is depression. So, depression, you all know that it is common nowadays. And ang primary personal factors na nagbibigay high risk na maging depressed ang isang tao is yung pag-set na high standard. Again, standard again, over and over again, standard. So, kaya daw nagiging depressed ang isang tao is nagkakaroon siya ng mataas na standard para sa sarili niya. At kung mapapansin nyo, kapag mataas ang standard ng isang tao at kapag hindi ito na-meet, you think that you are a failure and that your life is miserable. Kapag, like, for example, yung grades mo mataas or dapat mag-top ka sa board, sa klase, ganyan. And the high standards can also be expectations. That is why, wag masyado mag-expect or wag masyado magkaroon ng high standards. I'm not saying that na wag na lang magkaroon ng standard. What I'm saying is to minimize your standards according to your needs. And also, there is no perfect standard because it will always bound to fail. Next is the self-observation. So, to depressed people, they always exaggerate their failure. Instead, they minimize the number of their accomplishments. Kaya they tend to feel unworthy because depressed people think that they're not enough when in fact they have a lot of achievements in life. Ang dami nilang accomplishment. Ayun nilang makita yung accomplishments na nangyari sa buhay nila. Kasi to them, feel nila binobola lang sila ng tao. Next is the self-evaluation. Since ang observation nila sa sarili nila ay failures, then ang nakikita lang nila all over again is wala silang kwenta. And they're not deserving to be happy. They're not deserving to be in that place. So they punish themselves into something na sasabihin nila hindi man deserve maging masaya or magkaroon ng tumila, something like that. Something negative. Lastly is the self-reactions. Once someone is depressed and nagdan siya sa'yo saying, I'm not worth it, you should agree to it. Because to them, it is true. And in that way, you let them open up since alam din naman nila na hindi tama yung evaluation nila sa sarili. It's just that the emotions and thoughts are bottled up. And they need companion. They need companion because they can't help thinking. And once a person is depressed, just talk to them and let their thoughts be out through their mind. And just be there always. Also, to avoid depression, just lower your standard because our environment is really different, especially nowadays. Phobia is a fear that are strong and persuasive enough to have severe debilitating effects on one's daily life. For example, dyan sa baba, na picture, snake phobias prevent people from holding a variety of jobs and from enjoying many kinds of recreational activities because we know na kapag nakakita tayo ng snake, there is a high possibility na mamatay tayo because of the venom itself. And that way, we fear na ma-associate tayo sa snake. Kaya usually kapag nasa zoo, Even though the zookeeper assures us na okay lang na ilagay dito sa snake, mapunta siya dito, since na-train naman na, but nakatatak na nga sa utak natin na delikado sa snake, hindi pa rin may iwasan na matakot or magkaroon ng phobia. Because we tend to fear what we do not understand. According to Bandura, aggression is aggressive behaviors when carried to extremes and can also be dysfunctional, contended that aggressive behavior is acquired through observation of others, that experiences with positive and negative reinforcement. So I have here the illustrations of aggression as explained by TRC, the triadic reciprocal causation. So in Bobo doll experiment, children watch adult na nubugbog yung Bobo doll. And mataas yung tendency na yung aggression na nakikita nila sa adult while punching the Bobo doll. And that the possibility na yung behavior na yun ay ma-acquired o ma-adopt ng mga bata is because they think it is right. Kasi ginagawa ng adult na. And the tendency also na tumaas yung aggression nila na maaaring makaharm din sa ibang tao. So in therapy, the ultimate goal of social cognitive therapy is self-regulation. So to achieve this end, the therapist introduces strategies designed to induce a specific behavioral to generalize those changes and to maintain those changes to other situations by preventing relapse. So now let us proceed to vicarious modeling. If a therapist is able to distinguish fear of vaccine and previously has a fear of injection, then change has been induced and that person will have no fear because it will keep them safe. And more importantly, the level of therapy is to generalize those specific changes. Like for example, may phobia yung tao sa vaccine and gagawin nung therapist like magkapabaksin siya and ipapakita niya or illustrate niya na wala naman mangyayari. And this person who fear to have vaccine will think na, wala naman pala talagang mangyayari. In that way, si client, maalis yung takot niya sa vaccine. The second one is the covert or cognitive modeling. The therapist trains patients to visualize models performing fearsome behaviors. Overt and covert modeling strategies are most effective, however, when combined with performances-oriented approaches. So, covert modeling is more on the mind. Like, pwede mo na ipanood sa kanya yung process, how vaccine works since may takot na siya sa vaccine. Ayaw niyang mapanood or ayaw niyang makita yung about din sa vaccine. But in covert modeling, syempre, you can able to watch dun sa patients na this is how vaccine works and sa mga nangyayari sa mga tao kapag nakapagpabaksin na. And the third one is the inactive mastery. So, dito mo na ipapakita sa client mo na once he or she received the vaccine, then may possibility siya to be free without the fear na baka may mangyari sa kanya or changes sa katawan because safe na siya. Technically, paparealize mo kay client na once na ma-overcome niya yung phobia or yung fear is ganito yung mangyayari. And also, it also applies sa mga taong may fear of heights. Kapag parang pinakita mo sa kanila na tuloy-tuloy ka lang sa paglalakad sa mataas na lugar, then unti-unti sila mag-wonder na baka kaya ko rin. And that's how enactive mastery works.
Hello, let's talk about concept of humanity in Bandura. Si Bandura ay kilalang Canadian-American psychologist na gumagawa ng makabuluhang kontribusyon sa larangan ng social cognitive theory. Ang kanyang konsepto ng sangkatauhan ay nakasentro sa ideya ng tao na nagbibigay din sa kakayahan ng mga individual na kontrolin ang kanilang mga iniisip, emotion, at pagkilos. Kabilang sa pangunahing ideya ni Bandura tungkol sa konsepto ng kasangkatauhan ay triadic reciprocal causation. Iminungkahi ni Bandura na ang pag-uugali ng tao, mga personal na salik, cognitive, affective, at biological, ang kapaligiran ay lahat ay nakipag-ugnayan sa isang katumbas na paraan na nakaka-impluwensya sa isa't isa. Ang pakikipag-ugnayan ito ay kilala bilang triadic reciprocal causation. Self-efficacy. Naniniwala si Bandura na ang paniniwala ng isang individual sa kanilang sarili, mga kakayahan o self-efficacy ay isang mahalagang determinant ng kanilang motibasyon, pag-uugali at pangkalatang kagalingan. Ang mga taong may mataas na self-efficacy ay mas malamang na kumuha ng mga mapanghamong gawain at mapumilit sa harap ng mga hadlang. The next one is observation learning. Ang social cognitive theory ng Bandura ay binibigyan diin ang kahalagaan ng observation learning, kung saan ang individual ay natututo na magbago ng pag-uugali sa pamamagitan ng pagmamasid sa mga aksyon at kahihinatnan ng iba. Ang prosesong ito ay nagbibigay daan sa mga tao na makakuha ng mga bagong kasanayan at kaalaman nang hindi na kailangan dumaan sa proseso ng pagsubok at pagkakamali mismo. Moral agency. Kinikilala ni Bandura na ang mga tao ay nagtataglay ng kapasidad para sa moral na kalayaan na nagpapahintulot sa kanila na gumawa ng ethical na paghatol, ayusin ang kanilang pag-uugali at panagutin ang kanilang sarili para sa kanilang mga aksyon. Ang moral na kalayaan nito ay isang mahalagang aspeto ng kalikasan ng tao. Collective agency. Kinikilala din ng Bandura ang papel ng kolektibong ahensya kung saan ang mga tao ay nagtatrabaho ng sama-sama ahensya, kung saan ang mga tao ay nagtutulungan upang makamit ang kanilang layunin at maimpluwensya ng kanilang pinagsamang kapaligiran. Ang mga sama-samang pagsisikap na ito ay maaaring humantong sa mas malaking tagumpay kaysa sa mga individual na pagsisikap lamang. Ang konsepto ng kasangkatauhan ni Bandura ay binibigyan diin ang pagiging aktibo, ahente at sumasalamin sa sarili ng mga tao na may kakayahang humubog sa kanilang sariling buhay at sa mundo, sa kanilang paligid sa pamamagitan ng kanilang mga iniisip, emotion at action. And that's all my report of Group 6. Thank you.